Hi there. Before I get started, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that I'll be training on today, and we pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. This is going to be an introduction into parkour, essentially the start of hopefully what I'll do is a sort of a live series, but for now we're just going to do a one-take recording while I've got the gear for it. To start off with, we're going to be going straight into mobilisation. So we always mobilise before we get started in parkour, basically to get the joints warm, everything sort of moving at a point to prevent us getting into injuries when we get further down the track. So we'll just start off with the shoulders. You just want to start off by making circles. Just start to bring it together, so you're using your full range of motion. So the idea of mobilisation is to get into every joint and test its full range of motion. So you can go the other way as well. You might hear some things clicking. I'm not that old, I'm not not that young, so I find things are always needing to get pushed into place by our mobilisation time. So we can also bring back and forth here. So when you're coming around to hug yourself, you notice that I've got a different arm on top each time. You just want to be swinging it back and forth, getting your arms moving. Full extension open, full extension in. And this is sort of a weird one, but if you twist with your shoulders, pulling your shoulders and your arms in sort of opposite directions, you get a little bit more motion in there. Now we'll do the neck. So when we do the neck, you want to just take your time. Obviously you don't want to be flinging it around your neck and messing up your spine or anything like that. So you just want to take nice and easy turns, going left and right. I'm going to do circles, looking all the way up and all the way down. Again, taking your time. Going the other direction as well. Going all the way down, looking straight down, looking all the way up. Alright, so now we'll start getting to the arms, so essentially the elbows, which you would have been getting a bit through here, but you can just get a bit more mobilisation happening. Some circles, and then taking your wrists together and essentially pushing them together so that you're rolling up and over. This is an important time for you to get a feel for where your body might be a bit tight or tense, where your joints don't have the range of movement you want to, because knowing that is going to help you avoid injury down the track once we're actually going into techniques. Alright, so we're now going to move essentially moving the spine, but we'll start with the upper body first. So you want to try and keep your hips still and only be twisting at your back. Now relax that a bit and start to let it go down the rest of your body. So you can start to move your hips now. Now we'll go as far around as we can. Again, taking time not to hurt yourself or anything like that, but trying to get full range of motion all the way through the body. That's sideways, so you also want to work your way, create some mobilisation going forwards and backwards. So when you lower your body down, what you want to do is try and promote a bit of a curve in your spine, so everything's moving. what you can sometimes do, especially because I was trying to look at the camera there, is you'll end up holding your neck up like that. What you want to do is let it drop down so that you're actually got my movement there as well. Alright, so now we're going to act like we've got a hula hoop around us and get some mobilisation around the hips. And go back the other way. Alright, next up we're going to be moving around the legs. So what you want to do is keeping your legs straight and essentially promoting movement around full range of movement around your hips. And the other side as well. This one requires a little bit of balance, but you can try and bring your leg up and forward like this. Notice how my arms move, because that's pretty important to how I'm avoiding falling over. Coming around the other side. Alright, so we're going to work our way down to the knees now. Knees are not a ball joint. Sometimes people do this sort of thing, but all of that movement's actually happening up in the hips. The hips just go forward and back. Sorry, the knees just go forward and back. They're hinge joints. So you want to make sure that you're getting full extension all the way forward and back. You can also do a few squats, going as deep as you like, nice and gentle. Now that brings us down to the ankles. So when you sort out your ankles, they do have a lot of range of motion, so you want to make sure that you're rolling, you put your foot down on the ball of your foot and then essentially put pressure on it to move it around in all sorts of directions. Don't put too much pressure, it's just to anchor you so that you can get a lot of range of motion around your ankles. Alrighty, and one last one you can do is to write your name in the air. It's a good way to get just a little bit of motion, promote a bit of control. Alright, so now that we're all mobilised, I'm going to just take a moment to talk a bit about what parkour is. And this is a thing that's a bit under contention. Keep on moving while you listen to this, while I'm talking, just so that you can keep your body warm, and so to speak. So with parkour, there's a lot of different schools of thought. You've probably heard of free running at some point as well. A lot of this is all mixed under the one banner of parkour these days. So to be precise in what I'm going to be teaching, my focus is going to be on reach and escape parkour. And the idea behind that is essentially these are the fundamental movements that you need to get from point A to point B as efficiently as possible. And to also do so safely. So that tool set that you'll build up can be used for something a little more artistic or expressive, like what free running is. But for now, the focus of parkour is on building the body, building your capabilities and building your techniques so that you can move quickly efficiently and do so safely in a reach or escape situation. Another big part of parkour is, even though there is techniques for facilitating your ability to do those things, there is also a whole realm of community and training that is required to get to that point. And so much of our mindset and our focus is built around doing that properly. So we have a good focus on mobilizing properly before we go into training, using strength and conditioning to build our capability for next time. When we engage in techniques, we use progression to build us up from something small and achievable, and then slowly build upon that to build our capabilities. And this holds forth no matter what you're doing, whether you're using parkour simply almost as a martial discipline, or whether you decide to use it in a more expressive way, you still need to engage in progression to do so safely. So that's what we'll be talking about. Alright, enough of that. Let's go on to some technique. So we're going to start off with some basic drops. And to do that, I'm going to have to set something up. You might not need to around your house. You might have something that's easy to use, maybe some steps or something like that. But either way, I'm going to set something up. It's a tad rickety, so I need to be a bit careful with it. And I do recommend you take some real care in choosing well, especially if you're new to parkour and jumping on things and in general. Right. Cool. Alright. So, one of the core things that you do a lot of in parkour is you drop down onto a surface. And you'll see a lot of big drops, especially in those videos and whatnot. They all started from somewhere, and typically they started from very small drops, just gradually training up their body. So the important thing to consider with this is it takes time, especially at the age I'm getting. I'm 35, and I can't just go out and do a big drop straight away. I need to slowly warm my body up, do progressive drops. Even today, even after I've been training for many years, you still have to work your way up to certain drops to be able to do them. Now, the main thing with a drop is you want to be aiming to do so in a way that's not going to damage yourself, and it's under nice and firm control. So a very basic drop could look like that. And what you're aiming to do, I might just tilt the camera down a little bit. What you're aiming to do when you land is you're aiming to have your legs in alignment, okay? You don't want to have them too close or too far away. You also want to have your knees in alignment, okay? So you don't want to bring your knees in or your knees out too much, okay? A slight bit of out can be fine as long as you're activating the muscles here, but you want to have a nice and balanced landing. And what you also want to be doing is using your muscles as much as possible, rather than just landing flat on your bones. So when you jump around, you're not going to do something like that, okay? You're not jumping around with your legs board stiff, okay? You would have heard that. It's a very loud impact. So what you want to be doing instead is you want to try and almost reach out with your tippy toes, and then as you land, come down and use your muscles to absorb as much of that as possible. In gymnastics, they call this a motorbike landing, where you land like this, and that's the other aspect, is your arms want to be nice and in balance, and essentially you're ending it at this point. You don't want to come down too low, because that puts a lot of pressure on your knees, okay? Your ideal is to land in this nice bent situation, where your patella has the best sort of shot of leverage of holding up your body. So what you want to be doing is just doing a number of these drops. Take your time. If you're feeling like it, you can try and jump back up to where you came down from, where you dropped down from. A big part of parkour is doing repetitions, and that means slowly getting better with every step you do. You want to be gradually working your technique into something that works well, and the only way that you're going to do that is by constant repetition, feeling what works, feeling what doesn't, really paying attention to your body. The other thing you can play with is picking a spot on the ground and deciding that you're going to land on exactly that position. So using the balls of your feet, you want to try and land exactly where you want to. Righto, so that'll do it for drops. Another thing you can do is slowly raise or lower your platform, work with your height, and just to essentially give yourself a lot of different angles that you can try, just basic drops, and getting better with each one. You'll find even sometimes where you've got a short drop, you might not be doing quite the right thing, so it pays to really move around your surroundings if you've got control of it, and just change what the experience is each time. Alright, so now what we're going to do is something a bit similar to drops. We're going to be doing precision jumps, often referred to just as precisions. So precisions are a fairly big component of what you do in parkour. You'll be doing a lot of them, all sorts of different lengths, and one of the big things that people like to do just to practice with is just straight precision jumps, because it's a good feeling technique, it uses the whole body, and it just requires a lot of practice. You can always do better. So precision jumps are the idea that you'll be jumping from one spot to another spot. To start off with, we'll do it on level ground, but you can do it from an edge to another edge, or with some level of drop. There's all sorts of different things, but the technique largely stays the same. When you do a precision, you're essentially starting with your feet planted, so everything is in alignment, just like you would with a drop. And when you jump, the idea is to use your arms and then explode upwards into a sort of a 45-degree angle off in the direction that you want to go. So when you jump, and then you aim to land at the other end with both feet together, that same drop technique with your knees bent and nice and balanced. Now there's a little bit of subtlety to doing this properly though. If you want to land accurately, it's important that you get height into your jump, okay? So I didn't exactly get a good look at the last jump I did, but what you want to be looking for is that you're getting enough height that you can control your jump. If you jump flat, okay, you don't have a lot of control. I sort of exaggerated it there, but I'm relying very much on the grip of my shoes, and especially when you're outdoors and there might be a bit of rain about, or just a generally slippery surface, you can't rely on that. So, what you want to be aiming for is a bit of height in your jump. So when you do a precision jump, you want to be aiming to travel up and then place your feet down where you're intending to go. So you need a bit of travel time up in the air, and you want to aim to really stick on wherever you're aiming to land. So what I'll do now is I'll set up my bars here and sort of demonstrate what it looks like going from a surface to another surface. Mind the poor lifting technique. Alrighty. So when you take off, you can choose to take off wherever you like, but most people will take off somewhere where they can push off the corner of the surface that they're jumping off of. And what you're aiming to do, again, you don't want to go flat. This will work, but you can see how the whole thing moved underneath my feet. Okay? And that's what happens whenever you jump flat, you're actually putting a lot of sideways force on your jump. So what you want to aim to do is jump up with a little bit of height. Even that was not so great, and it's partially because this is just a bit slippery. So what we want to do is I want to get even more height into that jump. And still it's a little bit dicey, just because of how much they're slipping under these mats that I'm using to stop eating up my floorboards. But either way, what you have here is you'll gradually get your height in and you'll stop it moving. Because what will happen is you'll actually just be landing on the spot rather than hitting it at an angle. Obviously, once you get to longer and longer distances, this is less and less possible. But otherwise, it's a good way to go. So with your jumps, what you want to try and do is, that's the extent of the technique, and there's definitely more you can play with as you get more further along. Paying attention to how your legs move, how your body, how your arms come into it. But the main thing to start off with is to just essentially do it and get a feel for it, try different distances, and just get a feel for your body and get to a point where you can do it reliably. So I haven't talked a lot about what my arms are doing during this. When you start off, so a lot of people have slightly different techniques here, but what you want to be doing is using your arms to swing back and then up to help promote the height in your jump. They also help keep you balanced, which is why when you go up, they're keeping your chest up and balanced, and when you come down, they're keeping your torso in control. So have a play around with that, find a good spot for it, and just do a number of repetitions there, get a feel for your precision jump. You can try a slightly longer jump, but do take care, don't overextend yourself too quickly. Alrighty, I'm going to move this stuff around and then we're going to do one last technique. Righto, so this is the one that everyone sort of shies away from when they first start training, but it's really important to start trying the moment you get into parkour, and that's the safety roll. So the idea behind the roll is it's a way to keep yourself safe if you have a exceptionally large drop, and it's a way also to get yourself out of trouble if something you didn't expect to happen happens. So I'll just show it briefly and then we'll talk about it. Alright, so the roll is a way to redirect force if you've got a particularly large drop, and it's also a way for you to, as I said, get out of trouble if something you didn't expect to happen happens. The roll is something that you will spend years perfecting, and still have sometimes a bad roll here and there as you get further along. So it is important to start training it quite early, really, and build your capability. So what we're going to start off with is some basic concepts that you need to understand about the roll. So there are parts of your body which are soft and squidgy, mostly muscle and that kind of thing, and there are parts of your body that are rigid and will hurt like hell if you knock them. Okay? Things like funny bones and that kind of thing certainly take the cake there. But when we're talking about a roll, what we're really talking about is parts of the back and the spine. Okay? So what we want to be doing is, and you want to have a feel for yourself on your own body and understand where these points are. So on your hips, right down here, there'll be two little knobbly bits. Those are one of the big things that can really hurt for people when they're doing their rolls. They miss them, or they hit them, and then they can become quite painful. The spine itself, you don't want to roll over the top of. You want to keep to the muscles that are either side of the spine. And finally, you want to avoid hitting the bony parts of your shoulders right on the top, but also some slightly knobbly bits here on your shoulder blades. So those are the bits that you want to avoid. And in order for us to do that, we need to pick some particular spots that we want to aim for our roll. So when you're coming out of a roll, that's the first bit we're going to practice, and I'll just tip the camera down a bit. So when you are rolling, coming out of a roll, what you don't want to do is come straight up like this, okay? There are some people who somehow make it work, but what's more likely to happen is that you'll land on this part of your hip and it'll hurt a lot. So what we aim to do is turn our body a bit and aim to come up and over out of this, essentially where the glutes are and where all your leg muscles, all this protection here, that's what you want to aim to roll over when you come out. So the way we often practice this, going into first concepts with people, is we get them to essentially come down on their back, come up, pull the body together, and then try and just come down in the position that you would normally leave a roll from. And it's a bit hard to describe, so we're going to try. So if you think about this kind of stretch here, okay, where you've got your legs straight out and this foot coming into just getting close into your groin. This is kind of the kind of position you want to be in while you're coming out of a roll, but without the stretch part. So generally, what you're aiming to do is tuck this foot right underneath your leg here, and then come down in this sort of position. And the idea here is you should come down along these muscles. So when you practice it, what you're aiming to do is just bring that leg underneath the other and then come down. And then to practice the other side, you can do the same thing where you bring this leg underneath the other and then roll down on it. So you twist your body a bit so your back isn't straight. So if we're looking at it straight on, I'll just show it a couple more times. So as you come up, twisting the body and then coming down with this leg tucked underneath the other. And the idea is eventually you should be able to come up into this position. So that's the start of the roll, the end of the roll. The start of the roll is a fair bit scarier for people because it involves actually going up and over your head. So I'll just move this out of the way so I'll get a little bit more space. So the start of the roll essentially involves you going up and over one of your shoulders, but not actually over the shoulder. In fact, what you're aiming to go over is these muscles here. So you're supporting your body with one hand, and then you're rolling over the muscles that sit over the top. So I'll just show that a couple times, and then we'll try and break it down. And if you do it right, what you should end up with is you're rolling over these fleshy parts, you go to these parts, and then you come back and you end up on the other side, the other leg. So watch what happens to my leg as I come around. Right. So, that one's going to be scary. You don't know how, anyone putting their head underneath their body, everyone tends to be a bit sort of cautious about how we go into this. So, I can show you one way of doing this, but this is something that you maybe want to talk to people about, work your way through in order to really get a feel for your body and sort of break the barrier that a lot of it will be mental for this one. So, when it comes to setting up for rolling over your body, you start off in sort of this position where you're on your feet and you put your hands on the ground. And then after that, what you want to do is you want to choose the shoulder that you're going to roll over. In this case, I'm going to roll over my right shoulder, which means I want to take this right hand and bring it close to my left hand, while still keeping this in line. So if we're looking at it like this, you can see here my left hand is still in line with my shoulders, but my right has come over this way. And then what we do is we're going to come all the way down and essentially put our head on the ground and have this hand all the way down. From there, we're in a position where we can do the roll without any sort of major commitment. So what we're aiming to do is just come all the way down here, and then once you're in that position, you should be able to push off with a leg and kind of do your roll. And if that's scary for you, one last thing you can put in is a cushion. So again, we're starting off like this. Then we bring over the hand of the shoulder that we're going to roll over. So in this case, I'm going to roll over my right shoulder. So my left hand is going to stay straight. My right hand is going to come across, just right next to my left hand. And then I'm going to lower everything down and then push off this right leg to turn it into a roll. And that's going to feel weird, but the idea is, especially when you're starting off, you're trying to get a feel for how your body reacts under this situation and just slowly work through the technique. The better technique will come. The first thing you want to do is just get to some measure of doing it. So if you're doing it with your left shoulder, right hand stays still, left hand comes across. Come on down, and then push up and over with your legs. So I'll do a few more at different angles because I want to essentially just show you some different ways. This is one of those techniques where in order to develop it properly, you really do need to spend some time talking with people. If there's a particular issue that you're having, please let me know and I can try and work your way through it. Take a video, obviously, if you want to have the best chance of me understanding what the problems are. Now another thing to think about with these rolls is they're actually harder when you do them on the ground like this. Rolls are a lot easier once you have momentum, but the thing is you're a lot less likely to commit to them when you have momentum. So take your time with it. Again, a lot of it's a mental game, and you want to take your time just building up your body in the direction you want to go and slowly getting a feel for your roll. Everyone's technique is slightly different, and that's because everyone's body is slightly different. So it's really no big deal if the way I've showed you doesn't exactly work for you, but another one does. As long as you can do it in a way that's repeatable, doesn't hurt you, and it's reliable. Ideally, when you roll, it looks more like this. It comes from height, and it's got some level of speed to it, because the whole point is to redirect your falling out into horizontal motion so that you can then absorb the fall. Right, so we will talk more about rolls, especially if people have problems with it and stuff like that, but that sort of gives you some starting points. As I said, you want to start by getting your exit right. Get a feel for how you tuck your legs in and come down and over without without landing on the bony bits of your hips or your knees or even your ankles. So this one can hurt as well. Knocking the side of your ankle, you want to try and avoid landing on that. Okay? So get a feel for that motion. Making sure you twist your body enough that you're protecting the bonier parts of your hips and rolling on the muscular parts of your legs. When you're going in, again, when you roll over, you want to be rolling over this part of your body, okay? So that it's, or rather across this part of your body, so that it then comes sideways across your back. So whichever shoulder you roll over, you'll be coming out with the other leg. So you can see here, I'm rolling over my right shoulder, and then my left leg will be tucked. And if you get used to it, you can see I'm pretty much already in the tucked position with my legs. So I barely need to move my left leg as I come out. Okie dokie. Alright, that'll do for rolls. I'm going to swap over the recording so I don't run out of memory, and then we'll do the last little bit. Okie dokie. So I'm going to pack up a bit, and then after that we are going to do some small strength work and then stretch down. So, right at the beginning I said an important part of your training has to be building your body, making yourself stronger and that kind of thing. And that's not going to happen unless you consciously put the effort into it. Some training sessions it makes sense to put the conditioning before the technique, because you want to get a feel for how your technique is when you're a little bit tired as well, rather than just always doing it when you're fresh. But either way, your strength and conditioning is simply the same sort of things that you would do at a gym. But you can also do a lot of body weight exercises. The main thing is to make sure that you're pushing your body, and you're also making sure that you're varying your workout. If it's the same strength and conditioning every single time, your body will get used to it, and you'll start to run into some problems where you hit a plateau, right? You want to make sure that you're changing things up and keeping it interesting, not only for yourself, but for other people you might be training with. So, there are some basics that you can do at home, and these are hopefully not going to be a surprise. But if you do, just put the work in. If you make it a regular thing where you're going to be doing your push-ups, sit-ups, dips, that kind of thing. If you spend your time doing working your way through strength and conditioning, you will see dividends. It'll take time, but these will be long-lasting things that will help provide you strength for the things that you want to do, rather than just getting through the workout, so to speak. So, basic push-ups. If you want to play with these, you can do all sorts. You can go for wide arms, but ideally, the one that you aim for is with your arms level with your shoulders, and you're coming all the way down and up. There are progressions. Anyone who derisively calls things like these girl push-ups or whatever, We don't need none of that, okay? These are a perfectly valid progression if your upper body is not yet strong enough to do push-ups. Okay? So you can do all sorts of variations, and then once you get used to it, you can maybe bring your legs up onto some sort of bench or something like that and give it some height. Some other basic sit-ups, okay? When you do these, if you can try, I know everyone gets a bit tired and then they start throwing their arms to give them a bit of help, but try not to. It is better if you can hook your feet under something, but I don't really want to bring that over just yet. So with these, as I said, take your time, get a feel for your body. Try and isolate different areas as you move up, rather than just worrying about getting up. I got to be honest and say that this is probably one of the weakest areas of my workouts. My core has never been great, so it does take time. You do have to work at it, and everyone has things that they need to do with their body that they haven't quite done enough. Right, so you can also play with furniture around the house. If you've got some reasonably sturdy chairs, you can do dips with them. Squats is an obvious one, and it's one that sometimes, and I'm guilty of this myself, sometimes you'll overdo. So squats, there's lots of variations of squats. The one big problem with them on their own is they don't necessarily activate the glutes. And for me, that has resulted in a couple of muscle imbalances that have meant that my kneecap hasn't tracked properly. So if you do work with squats and whatnot, it's definitely important, but you've got to make sure you balance it out with other stuff. If you overdo your strength and conditioning, you can end up with muscle imbalances if there's muscle groups that you're forgetting. So do make sure to find room for other sort of muscle groups. Some examples might be this kind of movement. Because while I'm also using part of my arms, if you're pushing down on your legs, that is going to push sideways and use these glutes here. Another tool that you can use if you've got them is resistance bands. They're a great way to sort of round out your workout and your exercise space. But we'll talk about that another time. So what we'll do is just a couple more where I'll ask you to sort of keep time with me. So this time, let's just do some basic planks. So planking, if you don't know, is holding on to this kind of position here. We'll go for a minute. Do remember to breathe. Hey, buddy.
Are you recording?
Yeah, I am. It's alright. I'm about to stop. Alright, we'll do front support for 1 minute. So front support involves just essentially being at the upright part of your push-up. Should be slightly easier. See if you can hold this one for a minute too. It's alright. Alright, cool, that should be a minute. Okay, so just to finish off rather, we're going to do some stretching down. As I said right at the start, you start off with mobilization, getting the joints moving and all that. And then after that, you can do technique or strength and conditioning. Choose your order. Sometimes you want to do conditioning before you do your technique to practice how you feel when you're tired. But at the end of all of it, you've got to stretch down. This is really important, especially if you're new to this, because you will start to feel muscles that you never knew you had, and it's important to do proper stretching in order to deal with that. And stretching needs to be done while you're still warm as well. So we'll start off with some basics using the upper body. Let me just move the camera a bit. So you've probably seen this one at some point. With your arm, you can move it around, you can face it up. Make sure that you're feeling the stretch along your body here, along your arm rather. With your stretching, it's important to really get a feel for your breathing while you're doing it. It's going to really help you deeply go into a stretch if you're taking your time to breathe and really relax your muscles, because that's a big part of what we're trying to do, is avoid your muscles collapsing tensely once you've finished your workout. So in order for that to happen, you have to make sure that you're stretching properly. Change over. That's why it's important to do it warm. And this is especially a problem in your higher latitudes. So in Tassie here, you'll find, especially when you train during winter, that you'll cool down within minutes after you've done your training. So it's important to stretch in that gap. If you don't, you can end up essentially setting yourselves backwards in terms of flexibility and strength goals. So you really do need to spend your time stretching, especially once you get older like myself. Alright, so now we'll go up and over. So reaching over, touching the back of the back right in the middle between your shoulder blades, and then with the other arm pulling up and over and across. Try and open up a bit, get your head facing up and forwards, as that'll help open up your shoulders and actually get the stretch you want. Righto, so we'll do some more with the arms, even though we didn't push the arms particularly hard today. So here, you've got the hand palm out, then down, and then your other hand pulls back on that. Come over, do the same with the other. gentle with this one, but you can also stretch in the other direction with your palm down. So I'm just going to let things dangle a little bit, drop your arms down. You just want the back to stretch out a bit. It's probably a bit tight from standing up straight. I should remember to talk towards the microphone as well. Alright, so next off we'll do some with the legs. Get the camera. So just starting off, legs out straight, leaning forwards. Rather than just folding over, what you can try and do is once you've got your hands somewhere, whether it's down here, 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 depending on your flexibility, just straighten up your back, and that will actually stretch everything out. Because your body, even though there is particular muscles, there's also a lot of connection all the way through the body. So when you straighten up your back, you change your technique, it tends to have wide-ranging effects through the rest of the body. Alright, bring one leg in, and then leaning over again. If you straighten up your back a bit, you can get a bit more value out of this stretch. It's fine. Bring the feet together. I struggle with this one. I don't have nearly as much flexibility as I'd like to. But yeah, try and pull in. Again, back straight does wonders here. And you can, if you're super flexible, you can press down on your legs with your elbows. Alright, a couple more favourites before I run out of battery. So here, you've got a basic lunge here with your legs in line with your shoulders. Should really feel it underneath here. And then after that, if you're feeling game, what you can do is you can bring this leg across and then come down over this. And even more, you can really work where the stretch takes place by moving around your upper body. get through this one quickly because I'm almost out of battery. Normally you don't want to be rushing your stretch, so do take your time and pause if you want to get the best value out of it. Right. One last. So we'll set ourselves up, and what you want to be doing is just rolling your way up your spine, gradually coming up to standing, and then bring your arms all the way up, reaching up. Then bring that back down, folding your body back down. One last up. Alright, shake it out. If you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching. Hope you've got something out of it. Please send me a comment or whatever if you want me to go into a little more detail and stuff. And ideally I'll try and do this a bit more regularly, because I mean, what else am I going to do if I'm stuck in home for the next several months or whatever. Alright, thanks folks. See you around.